Dan is becoming one of my favorite people on the internet because rarely do we see comedians who have the balls to challenge Joe Rogan or say anything critical about Joe. But as of lately, Dan has been calling out Joe for his political grifting. If you've been on the internet long enough, then you probably witnessed Joe Rogan's shift in real time from far left to left leaning to moderate to right and now far right. And honestly, I feel like Joe Rogan was kind of forced in that direction when the left tried to cancel him for essentially making jokes or reading quotes on his podcast. Now, Dan sort of speaks on a broader issue, which is the political grift that's currently going on in comedy and especially on these comedy podcasts. What he's about to say on this pod essentially applies to a lot of other comedians. But honestly, I feel like when you throw the shots at Rogan, you essentially cover everyone else because they're all under his nutsack. So when you throw like that blanket out, if it covers Joe's, it covers all the other comedians who want to be like Joe. He calls out Joe for how he handled the Mark Zuckerberg interview. Mark Zuckerberg was clearly disingenuous. He came on that Joe Rogan podcast to run game. Joe Rogan has been critiquing how Facebook operates for the last decade. So he came on that podcast with a clear agenda. And even when it was very apparent that Mark Zuckerberg was BSing and just outright lying at times, Joe would essentially give him a pass and not really grill him about it. And he feels like Joe gave Zuckerberg a pass because Zuckerberg is a billionaire and Joe wants to retain that relationship.
I think what happens is it's the same with Zuckerberg, that they get so much money, stop calling them dorks and just start being like, you're the man, Zuck, you're the man. And he's like, buy me a thick collared t-shirt. Give me a gold chain. Like that episode with Rogan was embarrassing.
It's crazy how it looked. The look, I didn't listen to it, but the
Dude, the hunting part where Joe Rogan's like, what kind of bow you use? And Mark Zuckerberg is like, oh, I don't know. I can't remember it right now. Was totally.
Oh, it's like when my girlfriend lives in Canada. She's a model.
See, that's the thing.
Like, but how far away are you shooting things from?
It depends. That elk out there, the photograph that's in the front, that one I shot. It's in the front of the building when you walk in before you go into the studio. There's a mounted head and then a photograph of me and my friend Cam. That one was 67 yards. I shot one at 79 yards once, but that's rare. Most of the time, it's like, for me, my effective range, like where I'd like to be is 60 yards and in.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I don't think I've ever shot something more than 50 yards out.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, so I think that
really.
This scumbag pretending like he cares about hunting just to relate to Joe, so he could probably get off easy and not really have to answer the hard questions or get his feet held to the fire. But he would eventually expose himself, right? Because he tries to talk a good game about hunting or elk meat and bow and arrows, but he knows nothing about it, bruh. But this dude was born in New York and been a billionaire tech bro since the age of like 21 years old, bruh. This man is not into hunting. He's not into the wilderness at all, bruh. But he tries to talk a good game to sort of, get Joe off his pivot or have Joe like him so Joe don't go as hard on him. But mid-interview, he exposed himself. And not only did he expose himself, but Joe realizes too, and Joe never calls him out, which sort of lends a hint to Joe's credibility. Because if you realize this man is a fraud, and if this was anybody else, you would have probably called them out on the spot. But with the billionaire tech guy, you let him skate.
They have to keep their pin below the target, and then they raise it up to the target. When it gets where the target is, they hammer the trigger because they're just freaking out.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced that?
I mean, I've missed, if that's what you're asking. I haven't analyzed at this level of detail. But no, I mean, there are a lot of boars on our ranch. So I guess I don't get, and also like we have a range. And,
right.
And we, I don't know, we set up bowling pins and, it's like we shoot pistols at the bowling pins, but I also I'm usually faster at taking down all the bowling pins with a bow and arrow than most of my friends are with the pistol, which I think is pretty fun.
Really fit if you really want to huff up the mountains and keep your heart rate at a certain level so that when you get to the top, you can execute a shot calmly.
And then actually carry the thing out.
Yeah, and carry the thing out.
Yeah. No, I mostly use a rifle just because it's so much more efficient. Your conversion rate is so much higher, but it's... But yeah,
What kind of bow do you have?
Gosh, I didn't get to do it this season, but
do you know the company that makes it?
Not off the top of my head. I have a few.
You have to know.
Yeah, no, this is embarrassing. This is embarrassing.
It's all a grift. He sounds like your girl trying to talk to you about sports, not knowing nothing about nothing. Just straight lying, bruh. Mark Zuckerberg changing up his entire personality as soon as Trump wins shows, bruh, this is all a grift. His personality, right? He's not into hunting. He's not into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's not a conservative now overnight. He don't care about free speech. It's all a grift. Joe Rogan sort of understands that, but Joe Rogan sort of went along with it because, according to Dan, Joe is probably also grifted. Dan came through with a brilliant reference that described this Mark Zuckerberg phenomenon perfectly. And he will also relate this to other comedians and say that Zuckerberg ain't much different from Joe and other comedians, bro. Like, everybody right now is just straight up grifted, right? They're all changing up their entire personality, their entire belief system, and they're doing this because it's a grift.
We're in gym class, right? Public middle school.
Mm-hmm.
Kids want to be cool. I'll never forget this moment because this is exactly what happened to Zuckerberg. And this girl, Mikey L, this black girl, she's like, I'm like, oh, I love Biggie. I love Notorious B.I.G. And she just goes, very matter of factly, she goes, is he a group or a person? Like that. And I went, he is a...
Oh, you were a house of cards.
Dude. I go,
brought down.
I go, he's a group. She goes, he's a person. And just walked away, defeated.
Yeah, done.
Done. Cooked.
They pulled the bottom of the Jenga.
Bye. Crumble. He a person or a group?
Yeah.
Flat.
Game over.
That was Zuckerberg.
Literally, that was like a one punch
and then
KO. Yeah.
Oh, snoring.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's really funny. And we've watched it. We watched it in the mid-teens, and now we're watching it really heavy now. People grift to a side politically is so fucking funny to me.
It's wild. We're seeing, I was talking about it with Nimesh, where we got drunk the other night, and we're just talking about it's so funny that we know who these people are. We know who these comedians are. We're talking about comics, and we're just it's so funny. The comics that we know that are everyone's doing well, everyone's going on the road, but they're doing. There's people doing so well with this grift.
Yeah.
That you go that we're all just sitting here in disbelief, and it's
the absolute ignoring of evidence from the past is mind-boggling. Where you go, well, he didn't act like that, and then all they have to do is go yeah, I didn't like the woke mind virus, and you go, that's not even how you talk. By the way, friends of mine who are liberal, who are like that, I have friends that have stayed liberal. They're like, nah, I don't really know like that. And then you see the people that switch and you go, who are you?
The one thing you have to give Rogan credit for is that Rogan is open about it. He talks about being really far left at some point and transitioning. A lot of these other dudes want us to forget that they ever had certain opinions. They just act like they were never that person and that era never existed. And why a lot of people give Rogan a benefit of the doubt is because we see what Rogan went through. We seen the transition and the progression, and we seen how the left turned on Rogan, right? How the left tried to cancel and destroy Rogan. So him going to the opposite side to me really isn't a shocker. I mean, what do you expect for him to go back to hanging out and doing podcasts and talking and ingratiating himself with the very same people who try to destroy him? Now, with the thing with Rogan, though, is now that he's far right, it feels like some of his opinions, I don't know, seems a little biased, especially when it comes to Elon. And Dan does call Rogan out for this particular take.
This other thing about Elon. Elon's going to steal everybody's money. He has $400 billion. I'm telling you, he's not going to steal your money. I'm telling you, that's not what he's
doing. Do I think Elon and Doge was hovering over that PC trying to figure out how to reroute grab him a $500 social security check to Elon Musk's bank account? I don't think so. But to think that Elon Musk is above greed, you're out of your... Elon Musk tried to burn down the White House and expose Trump when Trump put that EV mandate in that new bill that would cost Elon Musk $500 million to $1 billion, right? So do I feel like Elon Musk is above using Doge to try to petition Congress or Trump to sneak a couple of things in for him? I don't. And I feel like Joe knows Elon isn't above that. He's a billionaire, for God's sakes, bro. Elon Musk didn't become a billionaire by not being money focused. He's money focused. He's greedy for sure, for sure. He's a billionaire, bro. And I feel like Joe wouldn't have that opinion if Joe, didn't have a special interest in maintaining his relationship with Elon. Now, Dan will call this out, and Dan will call out how silly Joe's opinion on Elon Musk and his greed is.
The thing I keep laughing about are all these people being like, billionaires don't want to steal your money. And you're like, yes, they do. Yeah. That's how they became billionaires, you idiot. That's a childlike way of thinking.
Sure.
Be like, they have money. They don't want no more money. And you're like, all they want is money. Brady, though, I mean, the greatest, I think it's proof of higher existence.
You can see the other dudes in the room. Yo, they didn't even want to respond after Dan dropped that bomb, bruh. And which is why it's such a breath of fresh air, because Dan is still able to come around, go to Rogan's Comedy Club, prosper in the industry without having to cozy up or hug Rogan's nutsack like these other dudes, bro. Because they realize they're not that talented and Rogan is their only life source. Without Rogan, they really won't have a career. Dan can stand on his own because he's funny. He's authentically funny. Rarely do you find comedians like Dan in 2025, bro, where he's able to speak his mind and tell the truth no matter what, not really fearing the consequences because he understands his talent stands alone. Even in this particular clip where he's about to critique Rogan's Comedy Club, he's about to give a pretty harsh critique of Rogan's Comedy Club that we rarely hear from anyone else. And as he's saying it, the other comedians in the room, you could tell they are a little bit worried, kind of awkward, because they understand what comes with it. Dan can do that. They can't. But the other comedians start to do this bit where they're playing into the fact that you're not allowed to critique Rogan's Comedy Club because you will be blackballed. So they begin to do this whole bit where they're nervously complimenting Rogan as Dan is just absolutely annihilating, the comedy club culture at Rogan's Comedy Club.
He missed out on so much money.
Yeah.
You could have had so much.
Well, it's sad too.
You could have had all of us.
She went to Austin, opened up this amazing creek in the cave.
Yeah.
And then Rogan opened up a fucking club.
But from what I've heard from people that I know in Austin, it is like the alternative for you can the comedy Mothership is so tight knit,
right?
And it's I also heard it's not a fun hang if you're an Austin comic.
What the Mothership?
If you're not in with Rogan and his crew, if you're coming up, it's not like the Cellar. The Cellar, you could sit at the bar and feel awkward.
Yeah.
I've heard the Mothership, you have to get past Navy SEALs to get into the green room.
Right. I love Rogan. I love the club. I think it's perfect. And I don't know what you're talking about.
I have no idea. And every time I go there, I feel joy in my heart. Only club that when they go, do you want to come? I go, yes. Before they even say, and then I feel joy.
Yeah. And he swung me. I'm all in on Trump.
Oh my God.
Smart guy. Very smart.
Yeah,
I had a little corruption.
I just booked Max, me and Max, bow and arrows, compound bows. We started shooting.
So you won't have your Zuckerberg moment with Rogan when he asks you what kind of bow you have?
Oh, I don't know what that means. Does he shoot a bow too? Oh, he does. Oh, it's just coincidence then. I love elk meat too. That's all that's coming.
Yeah, I've brought it up before, but I bring it up every time. When Joe Rogan posts a picture of elk meat, just go see who likes it.
Really?
Because it's the most bootlicking shit in the world. You're like, you fucking pussy.
I got to tell you that.
There's cool meat.
As a fact.
Loser.
I do wonder if Rogan takes notice of the conversations that the people around him are yes men and they can't critique him. And if he ever has a conversation with them like, hey, bro, y'all know y'all can critique me, right? You don't have to ride my nuts all the time, man. Now, he's not lying, though, about the culture of Rogan's Comedy Club because Andrew Callahan, he would actually tell a story of, a really bad experience he had at the Mothership. And it really gives us a sneak peek into the tight-knit culture in this good old boys club and how if you don't really fit in, you'll sort of be treated like a pariah.
And so I told Lemaire, I'm like, yo, can I go upstairs to the green room? I'm trying to, kick back and, lay low for a bit. He's like, man, I could take you there, but just so you know, Joe Rogan's a bit territorial about that green room. So it's at your own risk. And I'm like, dude, no way, it's going to be fine. Joe Rogan's reacted to 7 of my videos because Jamie always plays them, so I'm like, it's going to be chill. So me and Lemaire take the elevator up to the secret green room at the Mothership. There's 5 comedians in there, all in their mid-20s, Everybody recognizes me except for Joe Rogan. So everybody's dapping me up. Lemaire says, hey, Joe, it's my homie Andrew. Shake Joe Rogan's hand. I put some popcorn in the microwave, which I felt like was establishing myself as a member of the green room. And then I turn around and I see Joe Rogan like yelling at the security guard. And he's yelling, who let the journalist in here? Kick him out. I can hear Joe saying this. I guess somebody told him that I was like a journalist, so he maybe thought that I was a Daily Beast reporter that had snaked my way into his safe space to ask him about ivermectin, which is a valid concern. So before I could even get kicked out, I was like, Lemaire, I gotta get out of here. And I walked down the stairs and went back into general population.
I don't think Joe mistook you for somebody. No, I think Joe knew exactly who you were, and Joe just didn't want you up there for whatever reason he has. But I think that was fair, but that's in Joe's right. It's his club. But I do think that does kind of highlight the culture of it, which is good old boy club. If you're not one of us, you can't really hang around, and that don't really make for a welcoming environment. Now, I do think Dan made some great points. He was fair. I don't think Dan came off as an absolute hater whatsoever. I think his critiques of Joe was pretty fair, man. But y'all let me know in the comment section, what do you guys think about this? Let me know, okay? And if you're still watching, click on this video right here to find out how this new information could ruin this rapper's career. Click on this video right here to find out what I'm talking about. I'm out of here, folks. Peace.